everybody. My name is Joel Varughese, and welcome to today's podcast episode of The Doctor's Journey. Today, we have an extremely special guest, Dr. John Graneto. Dr. Graneto is the Dean of California Health Sciences University College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Graneto, we appreciate the time you've taken to meet us here today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
So Dr. Graneto, would you mind taking a little bit of time and telling us as to how you have the position you're having today, and what were all the steps and major obstacles you've had to deal with and also accomplish to be where you are today?
Well, thanks, Joel. You know, becoming a dean of an osteopathic school is quite an honor, and the journey to get here can be through various pathways. My particular happenstance was I was working clinically in emergency medicine for many years in Chicago and became aware of some teaching opportunities part-time on the campus of the Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I began working there part-time teaching. Now, most physicians don't have formal training in teaching. And so the learning curve for understanding classroom etiquette and learning objectives is very steep for many physicians. I was fortunate to have some academic partners back at CCOM. They were mostly PhD scientists who helped guide me along the way, and some significant physician leaders at that school. I slowly increased my teaching time on that campus, and eventually becoming a course director, a subsequent year becoming a department chair. Now, a department chair at an academic institution is typically one of the first academic stepping stones to taking further leadership positions. And that's the typical route for many associate deans and then ultimately deans at our DO schools, as well as for many traditional MD schools as well. Now, my particular opportunity was made clearer when after a few years being a department chair, I ran into a dean at another osteopathic school, the Kansas City University of Medicine and Biosciences, and I moved to Kansas City and was the associate dean there for almost 3 years before hearing of a dean opportunity to start at CHSU. And so that's my particular route along the way. Those positions come with some, quote, on-the-job training, but there are many smaller programs you can take as a physician to enhance your learning, to enhance your teaching skills, and to enhance your leadership skills along the way. And so I was fortunate to participate in some of those as well. And then that's what landed me here.
Wow, that's amazing, Dr. Graneto. So Dr. Graneto, I think a major question that all of us have, or all of us are asked, especially when joining osteopathic medicine, what kind of got you into osteopathic medicine, and how would you define osteopathic medicine with your years of experience?
Well, you know, the classic discussion of osteopathic medicine focuses around the four tenets of osteopathic medicine, and the ones that really struck home with me was the body's capability of self-regulation and self-healing, and number three, the structure and function are reciprocally interrelated. Now, those are just words written on a piece of paper. I happen to have grown up with a very significant influence from the chiropractic world. My father, uncle, and brother are all chiropractors. And so understanding the interrelationship between structure and function was something that I seemed to understand very early on in my life. And so going to an osteopathic school seemed the right fit for me rather than going to an MD school.
Totally. I definitely see that. I mean, it makes sense, in regards to what you've spoken of. I understand the, importance that osteopathic medicine can kind of make. And speaking of the importance of osteopathic medicine, I was wondering what you believe is going to be the future for many DOs, as well as the future education of osteopathic medicine in the future of the world?
Well, I think the focus on the osteopathic tenants is certainly very important to the osteopathic world, but it's not, we don't own it. It's not unique to our philosophical approach. There are plenty of MDs who believe in some of these same principles that we teach, and there's plenty of DOs who don't necessarily practice in the same way that others do. And so I think some additional, not necessarily merging, but some additional cooperation between DOs influencing some enlightened MDs to practice in a certain way might be one of the areas where the future of osteopathic medicine can have its foothold. Certainly, there's a subset of patients that seek osteopathic physicians primarily, preferentially, and certainly there's opportunities for us to collaborate in the education. We already know that residency programs under the single accreditation system have moved in this direction. And what some had feared was that somehow osteopathic medicine would be lost in that single accreditation system. But in fact, what we see now is some influencing that osteopathic medicine is having on the other programs who had some opportunities to learn from us.
Definitely. I mean, one of the reasons I believe, osteopathic medicine reached out to me was also because of the fact that it inspires some new ideas as well as open thinking as to how we can look at new things in different perspectives. And so with CHSU COM, it being one of the newer schools, how do you see it having or making a difference in the Central Valley and the future education of DOs? How are we trying to inspire others as well as make an impact?
I think one of the advantages of being at a new school, certainly there's plenty of challenges. One of the advantages of being at a new school is we can try innovative things or things that we think are on the forefront without having to make significant changes in already existing schools. And so opportunities for us to do things like introduce culinary medicine modules into the curriculum to make sure nutrition is at the forefront of some discussions when we interact with patients. That's huge. For us to incorporate more technology and innovations in the curriculum is an opportunity for us to lead the way towards what should be, or maybe what will be for lots of medical education for other medical schools, DO or MD. And so I'm proud that we have those sorts of innovations in our curriculum. I think having a medical school in a underserved area is a very important impact on the population of that area. And so we know that California, being one of the richest states in the US, has some of the poorest health outcomes right here in the Central Valley. And so having an impact on the Central Valley is very important for healthcare outcomes for generations to come. And having students placed out in resource-limited clinics and opportunities to serve the underserved in those areas will make a huge impact in healthcare and therefore in medical education for the future.
I definitely agree with everything you've just said. And, I wanted to ask, I guess, in regards to some advice that you would be giving to students. I mean, there are many students who are going towards pre-medicine or going to the medical field, and there are some people who definitely are conflicted as to whether medicine is the right choice for them. But in general, I mean, you've been in the teaching field of medicine for a bit of time. What kind of advice would you give to students who are considering medicine or are in the process of applying to medicine, or just trying to figure out which career is the right choice for them? What would be your general advice?
Yeah, that's a great question. Young people who want to enter into any healthcare career really already have set in their mind that helping others is something that they want to do. And everybody writes that on their personal statement that when they apply to any healthcare career. But I think the advice really ought to be to gain some experience, whether it's through volunteering or working, where if you want a career in healthcare, you should really have an opportunity to interact with patients and human beings when they're at their worst, when they're in pain, when they're struggling, when they're facing some other healthcare crisis, because that's where you can, as an individual, identify and see, do I have the empathy? Do I have the grit and determination to take care of human beings when they are at their worst? And so it's one thing to say I want to help people, but it's another thing to say I actually have done these things. And that shows that you have the motivation to be a professional in healthcare or a physician. Being a physician is one of the most humbling opportunities to interact with humans. It's one of the few professions where other human beings need to trust me to share their inner secrets of their health, their concerns, their fears, their anxieties. And very few professions are honored with that privilege. And so being professional enough to have those conversations with other human beings is really quite an honor to be a physician. Students who want to become a physician, it's incredibly obvious that students who study well and do well in school and do well on exams like the MCAT are clearly the ones that are a step ahead of others who want to enter into medicine. And I think some of the advice I also give for pre-meds is medical school is a lot of information that you have to absorb in a short period of time, unlike anything else, unlike high school, unlike college. And one of the ways to get ready for that is through reading stamina. Get big, thick, dense novels, get books that you can read at a half hour at a time or an hour at a time, uninterrupted, and see if you have the stamina to focus that long without looking at your phone or going on your computer, because that reading stamina will pay off in the long run.
Definitely, Dr. Graneto. I mean, I truly agree with what you were speaking of in regards to the impact that you make before you even join medical school and trying to understand what it is that individuals in the medical field do. And I think aspects of the medical field isn't just, knowledge, but as well as knowing that you're out there to help people, but also you're working in a team and many other qualities that make you a better physician. So Dr. Graneto, before we kind of end the interview, I was just wondering if you had any parting thoughts, any last things you would like to mention.
I think the opportunity to enter healthcare professions now is more obvious than ever. We know that the current pandemic will not be our last healthcare crisis to challenge us in the next few years. And whatever's next is the exciting part that keeps us all inquisitive and eager to learn more and adapt to new healthcare paradigms. And so it's an exciting time to be in medicine, and it's an exciting time to be learning in medical school.
Thank you, Dr. Graneto, and thank you everybody for taking the time to watch this podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And Dr. Graneto, thank you once again for meeting with us.
Thank you all. It's my pleasure.